And we are live. Hey, everyone who is watching. Welcome to the Doctor of Stuff channel. I'm your host, Doctor of Stuff. And with me, I have uh, one of my favorite people in the crypto space here, Crypto Rain. Crypto Rain, the multimillionaire. And just to give people a background on this series and why I labeled it VeVe Influencer Series, and this is episode one. Um, I've interacted with a lot of the VeVe influencers in this space over the last 2 years, and you know, throughout those 2 years, there have been times where I've agreed and disagreed with the different influencers, and I've heard all of their stories. But the thing is all of their stories are all over the place, and I'm like, how cool would it be if I could start a series where I get to interview and learn more about each of these VeVe influencers, how they got into crypto, how they got into the space, how they got into VeVe, why they started their channels, what they're doing now, what they think. And so it's not just going to be YouTubers, it's going to be people from Twitter Spaces that hold Twitter Spaces and things. Like, I just want to get like a great big overview of a lot of the thought leaders of this space, right? And it'll be interesting to have some of these conversations and ask questions and talk about things that the community is very adamant about, and we're going to talk about some of that today. I'm very excited, but anyways, before we get started, I just want to say everything we discuss here are just our personal opinions. It's not financial advice. I'm not a financial advisor. Neither is Crypto Rain. And we're all big boys and girls here. Let's put on our big boys and girls pants and, make those decisions for ourselves. So with that, Rain, how are you doing?
Good.
Good, good, good. You had a good day so far today?
Yeah, it's been really nice. I try to get a feel for where the market is going, and sometimes you don't know. Days like this, you get some clarity. It was kind of a decision point, break up or break down, and it's breaking to the downside in a lot of things. And that happens. And I actually enjoy days like this because then I can tell which direction it's going to go for the short term. Long term, I also know what direction it's going to go. What's hard is actually figuring out where it's going to go in the short term until it tells us, and it's telling us right now.
Yeah. What's it telling us?
It's going down.
Yeah, yeah. There's a lot. So okay, let's back up. I want to start from the beginning, Rain. What led you? When did you get into crypto, and what led you into crypto?
So what's funny is my background was real estate and real estate investment. And what I liked is the ability to use your money to make yourself more money, right? So in life, there's only a few ways to go from poor to rich. And I was born poor. So I don't know. Some of you maybe were born rich, but I was like, I like the idea of having lots of money because then you just have more options in life. So how do you do that? Well, you can go to college, maybe work really, really hard, try to become a doctor, make lots of money as a doctor, save a whole bunch, and invest it well and try to make money. Okay, that's one route. I didn't want to try to have to get a 4.0 GPA through the university and go to 12 years of med school for that route. So real estate's the other route. And I was doing real estate and I had some great successes and also some very hard learned lessons. And real estate is a great way to make money over 30 years and make significant money over 30 years. By significant money, maybe 4 or 5 million. If you get lucky, maybe it's higher if you just happen to time it right when you get started. So I was going that route, and my friend, I ran into this guy. I was writing deals for a business that would buy properties, improve them, and usually sell them. And I was negotiating all their deals, and I met this guy, and he's like, wow, I just made 15x on this micro investment I made. And I was like, 15x? What do you mean 15x? And he said, oh, 1500%. And I was like, wait, what? And what over what time frame? And he's like, 2 months. I was like, what in the world is that? And and so later we were texting, and he texted me and he said cryptos with a K. Like, he didn't even spell it right. And so I'm trying to Google what this crypto thing was all about. And he finally told me which one he got into. And he got into a very mediocre crypto project, but the timing on it was good. He got in at September 2017. So, or maybe even earlier than that, August. And so I got started mid to late October. and the market ran up really strong, especially in December. So Bitcoin kept kind of going up. It would pull back a little bit and then run up, and it peaked out at 20,000. And a lot of the altcoins then later ran early that January. And I saw what I had invested. I put about 15,000 in myself. It went to about 165,000. And then over the following months, it turned into about 3,000, which isn't a lot of fun, especially because had I sold, I would have realized some really nice gains. And no, now I'm in some positions that, man, worth $3,000. That's a frustrating place to be. But because I had been investing for a long time, I understand that markets cycle. They go up and then they go down. And what you don't do is you don't liquidate your positions when they're down, unless you find a position that's even more down that you're interested in the long term. So I use that time just to continue to dollar cost average in crypto, and absolutely dug in and researched and learned more about the different cycles, and tried to explain it to all my friends and other people during the crypto winter, which is the hardest time to get anybody to listen. And so I just kept, after actually most of my friends and other people weren't really interested in listening, I just shut up about it and kept buying a bunch myself, putting every extra penny I could into crypto. Not so much that it would jeopardize not making my mortgage or anything, but right close to that line. Like everything, right? Every bonus from work and everything all went into crypto.
So, funny background. So, I've known Rain for a while, and I talked to him during this period of time where he was telling me about crypto. And the funny thing is, for my job, I had done some analysis on crypto, um, but from a different point of view, not from the investment standpoint, but like the potential impact it had on the financial sector and the banking sector. So I was aware of it, but I just saw the prices and the volatility. And I remember Rain, you sitting there saying like, "Hey, you should get into this," and I was like, nah, man. I mean, I did dip my toes into it. I bought some ether in around like one of its highs when it had gotten up to like $1,200, and I didn't know it at the time. That was around like its all time high at that time. And so I'm like, I just want to get my dip my toes in the water. Rain's been talking about this a lot, and I'm like, I feel like I should understand it a little bit more. So I threw in some money, and in like 2 weeks it like dropped from $1,200 to like $600, and I was like, what just happened? Then I panicked and I was like, well, I'm going to sell out of that. People are talking about XRP, and I bought some XRP right as the SEC slapped a lawsuit on the XRP, and then my position dropped. So all of the money I went in, like it dropped to like $40 in like 3.5 weeks, and I was like, crypto is not for me. But you kept talking about it, and I was like, why does he keep, what is going on? All of these, he's buying at these prices, but it's down, right? It's so down. And so it's so funny to me. So here's my question for you, right? Because I, I've held my position in XRP. I never sold any of that. So I still got my, like, maybe it's worth $50 now or something. Never sold the XRP. But most people, and I checked out. After that, I didn't sell my XRP because I was like, I'll probably buy another coin that will have again. So I'm just going to keep it where it's at. But what kept you in the market and buying at those prices when everyone else was pulling out? I mean, you kind of touched on that, but like, give me more of a background on your thought process behind that, right?
So, interesting thing about market cycles, right? So I've always loved economics and the psychology of people behavior and the combination of those things. And what's interesting is I had a real estate investment mentor. Like he was teaching a real estate class, and I just latched on this guy and like asked him, like, I took him out to lunch. What's interesting about multimillionaires, the guy was worth a couple $100 million, is they'll usually give you your time if you offer to take them to lunch. And so you end up spending 30 or $40 on lunch, and you get an hour of their time. Whereas if you were to pay them some kind of consulting fee, you would pay a couple $100, maybe $1,000, maybe $10,000 for an hour of their time. So we went to lunch and he was like, the interesting thing is when everyone's talking about real estate is usually the time I sell. And when everyone's telling me how terrible it is, that's when I buy. And that applies to crypto, right? So, and I saw that firsthand in real estate. So I got started in real estate in 2000, watched it go crazy, watched it crash. Um, and during the crash, amazing deals. I knew a guy that was picking up single family homes that were 3 bedroom, 2 bath that had previously been $250,000, and then was picking them up on the foreclosure steps for $50,000, putting $10,000 into them to get them up and ready, and renting them for $1,000 a month. And that was in 2010, and those properties are now worth about $250,000 a piece, maybe 270. And so he made incredible money. But by incredible money, that's nothing compared to what we can make in the crypto space. So each of those properties, he was putting about $20,000 in and making some good money. But what I liked about crypto versus real estate is it has this amazing volatility where it goes tremendously down, but then tremendously up. And so literally it's this simple. If you're buying when everyone's running away and you sell when everyone's FOMOing in, like those swings are pretty amazing. So and it's yeah, that's oversimplified, but it literally works like generally super well.
And that's when you say oversimplified, I was going to get into that a little bit more, right? Because not all projects go back up.
Right.
And so for you, and I'm going to transition this. We've got a question in the chat that I want to post and have ask you along this topic. But like, what's your process then for looking at these projects that are down and picking the ones? Like, how do you pick the ones that you feel like are going to do well? Because again, like some of them, people are like, oh, it's down 95%, but then people don't realize that it can still go down another 95% from there. Like, and so how do you pick those projects?
See, it is hard to time the exact bottom, and that's a frustrating thing that often, even when you're buying what you consider a good project, it might go down further, and then that just takes patience to hold and see if you were right. So picking the right projects is, I look at two things. What is the project doing? Like, and really, does that need to be done in crypto? Like, how does crypto or this whole crypto idea make what it's doing better? And secondly is, who is the team behind it? Now, when I was first brand new in the space, I just kind of bought what people were talking about because I didn't know any better because I was brand new. As I really dug into the research, I realized there's a lot of crap out there that like blockchain isn't needed to try to do what they're doing. They went to blockchain because they could raise a bunch of money that they wouldn't be able to get anywhere else. And the project ultimately might not turn into anything. In fact, the chances are against it. So I try to look for things that have a narrative, something special about it that gives it a better than average chance to succeed short term, midterm, and long term. And a good team behind it. It's a lot like if you think about crypto investors, what you're really doing is your early stage venture capital investing. And a lot of people are brand new at this, so they suck. And they think when they get wiped out because they make some dumb moves FOMOing into a meme coin, they think, oh, crypto's a scam. And it's like, no, you just made a stupid, bad investment because you're new at this. And we all start out that way because we were all new at one point. So the question is whether you're going to stick around long enough to become good at this. And the people that do stick around long enough to become good at this and understanding the cycles and timing the cycles, they will financially change their lives for forever. Okay, it's going to take maybe an 8-year commitment, maybe even less. The volatility tends to decrease over time. So if you just started this week, and you're brand new in crypto, commit yourself to 8 years. If you started a couple of years ago, it might only take you 5 years. So it really, but what else are you going to do that in that time frame, if you become really good at something, you could financially change your fortunes into the millions and millions of dollars? If say you're a 22-year-old, what else are you going to do? Real estate? Well, real estate's got a ways to come down after going absolutely crazy. And so likely, I don't know, maybe money printing goes crazy. And so the dollar value doesn't go down on the real estate assets, but the true value does because they're at all-time highs almost everywhere in the world. So real estate, the timing's bad to get started on that. Crypto, well, we're in another freaking down day, and I think it's going to go down even more. And what's crazy is right before some big runs comes some massive FUD, and there's a lot of FUD out there. And what's interesting and what people don't realize when they look back in the history of the charts and they see this day and they look back and they say, I wish I could buy on that day. Do you realize that day was accompanied with some really strong concerns about the future of crypto? And then guess what happened? It overcame the FUD, got resolved, and it took off tremendously. So we're in another one of those times. The SEC seems dead set on trying to hold back crypto in favor of existing institutions. Gary Gensler, I hope he just gets smacked down by a bunch of these in a bunch of these court cases, especially against XRP and some other ones. And look, regulators' job is to try to get a hold of and control. Well, that's not really their job. Some people that are regulators see this as their job, is try to get a control and a handle over everything. So he's trying to extend the SEC's control over all of crypto. And, he's a Goldman Sachs person. He wants Goldman Sachs and Fidelity and those that are where he really comes from. That's where he's made all his money, and that's where his allegiances lie. To go that way. And so he's acting in line with what he thinks is best because he thinks Goldman Sachs should be the ones doing this stuff. When traditional banking, they get massive fines. They do fraudulent things all the time. Their excuse of why they're going after that stuff is, oh, crypto, there's too many scams. Well, there's scams in the banking industry too. That's just a narrative they're using. And he's trying to grab control over it. So a lot of people are scared. Right now, they're going after all the gateways into crypto, right? So there's legitimate FUD out there. People are panicking. Massive red candle. People are selling.
So what? There's this question here, right? Compare this bear market to the last one. Like, what's the same? What's different?
What the FUD is about is what's different. So, like, look back into the when you see in 2020. March of 2020, when you see that big red candle that goes down, that was coronavirus. All these businesses were like closing down. The future of the world was scary, right? Oh my gosh, this coronavirus, is it going to kill a bunch of people? Like, there were a lot of unknowns, right? A lot of these businesses were closing, and our economy is going to survive. So massive red candles, bring it all the way down. And guess what? From there, it dipped down to Bitcoin, specifically went down to 3,800, and then it ran up later all the way to $69,000. And so had you had some capital liquid and you were long on crypto and you bought some things while it was cheap, you would have done really, really well. Cardano specifically went down to 1.7 cents, later going to $3.40, which is like a 200x from that bottom, right? So, and that's within a year and a half. So 200x, like, that's not even possible through a real estate, really.
I mean, there is no other financial vehicle minus like derivatives, right? Like, I mean, you can get into some leverage trading, I guess, in general in stocks, like where maybe, but there, I haven't seen something where I feel like you can do the research on projects and find an entry point, and really experience massive gains that don't have necessarily the same amount of risk as leveraged trading does, right? So okay, I want to transition because obviously the title of this is Crypto Millionaire, so bullish on VeVe and OMI. I want to transition into that portion of when did you find OMI and or VeVe? You want to talk about that? How you found that?
Yeah, it was like 2018. So, early bear market where you didn't really realize you were in a bear market. You kept thinking, oh, it's going to come back from here. Not realizing that, it was going to be about 2 years while most of the market was down. In 2 years, some of the market would take off, but really the rest of the market would take off in 3 years. And I had met this guy out of the UK that had a YouTube channel, and so I invested in some projects with him and through him that were early stage. And one of the projects he brought was this project called the Comey. And they had this idea they were going to have this secure wallet that was like a credit card size, and you could hold it in your like wallet. And so it was going to be a secure thing, and ledgers were out by then, so you kind of had an idea what that was all about, and that you could have these digital collectibles, that they had a big background in licensing and other things, and that they were going to go after and get some collectibles, and that digital collectibles would be something where the future was. So I was like, wow, that makes sense. So I invested before the token actually even launched. And then I just kind of forgot about it for a while, right? So because during the bear market, like everything gets savaged, especially these projects. And one of the challenges is when you don't have a YouTube channel yourself, trying to reach out to these projects, like, now they pretty much all have a Telegram and a Discord where you can jump on and at least get a response from their Telegram admin or their Discord admin, which is probably somebody working for free who might not even have direct access to the leadership. So their responses are minimal. So I was like, I have no way to reach out to this team or figure out what's going on. So I just kind of forgot about it because I thought maybe they were going to die during the bear market. And it probably came close to it. It was a pretty long bear market. They launched their token later in 2018. It did okay initially, and then it absolutely tanked, like everything else.
Yeah, I remember when you and I were talking about NBA Top Shots, actually, because I think the LeBron James moment, or one of his moments, had just sold for like 250K. And I was like, this is insane. What is this NFT thing? And it was, but like, I kind of understood it like a little bit at the time. I saw this video clip and that you could own those video clips. I thought that was interesting. And then you were telling me like, oh yeah, I bought some of those, the original packs early on, and because you bought them in like October, November. And then you're like, this is cool, but check out this. And then you open the VeVe app and you showed me the Todd McFarlane Batman. And you said, this is the first Batman on the blockchain. And I remember at the time being like, I don't know much about this yet, but I feel like that is important. But I remember hitting the buy on it and be like, I'm paying $80 for an image. I'm like, this is surreal to me. And I bought several just because I was like, it's probably important, but $80, like what even is this? And it was so funny. So because then I bought some, FA Joker, FA Harley Quinn, and I'm mad because I liked the Jim Lee Joker. I just thought it was so unique, and so I bought more of him than I did of the Todd, and then even more Harley Quinn too because I loved Harley Quinn. But I remember as I started getting into the space, looking at some of these other NFT projects on OpenSea, and how they were kind of like pumping really fast, and like the Todd was sitting at the $100 mark for months, and I was embarrassed. I was like, oh man, my first NFT is only this Todd McFarlane. He's sitting at $100. Like, this is crazy. And man, how far I've come. And looking back on that, how grateful I am that you introduced me to that. And it's funny because I remember I talk to friends now who, after you introduced it to me. So in 3 days is my VeVe birthday on the 12th of March. 2 years ago on that day is when you introduced me to VeVe. And so I think it's so cool to have this like interview with you almost 2 years to the day, right? To talk about VeVe and OMI and where they're at, because I've definitely dived deep down the rabbit hole on it. But before we get into VeVe, there's one last thing I want to tell everyone who may not know. So Crypto Rain, he has his own YouTube channel and covers so many different projects and tokens. So do you want to talk about like why you started that channel and where it's at and what your plans are for it?
Yeah, so when I was brand new in the space, I was trying to get education, right? So I had a background in investment. I did go to business school, and I worked for a business consulting firm for a couple of years before going off to do real estate. Whereas, like, well, that's where you can earn the real money. And so, but I learned some good lessons there, and I had followed stocks and made some stock investments, and they were interesting stocks. When I found crypto, it was great, and so I really dove into YouTube because that had the most up to date information. YouTube and I like to see body language. I like to see what people are talking about, hear their thoughts behind it. So I like long format type information. And so I just paid for the premium on YouTube so that I could download videos. I could listen to them even when my phone was in my pocket, and say I was working out or I was doing something else or I was driving, and I could just listen and get educated on things. So I found a few channels, but there's a lot of stuff out there that just shills whatever, right? So I found a few channels that I liked. Here's one of the problems with the type of influencer or YouTube channel owner that I was really interested in. Well, if they really know what they're doing, well, they become super rich and they don't have time to really make YouTube videos anymore because it does take a lot of energy and it's hard. And there were only a few that I really, really liked. I was like, man, and one was what's his name? Chris from Crypto. And he doesn't make altcoin videos anymore. He just makes really short videos about what Bitcoin is going to do. And he does trade and leverage, which is super risky. He is one of the few percents that can do that well. 98% of people in the crypto space that try that leverage trading get wrecked, even in a market then goes up. So I don't suggest that to anyone, but he used to make videos about altcoins and they were amazing. And he did amazing fundamental research and helped me do some really good research to figure out what I was interested in. Well, he stopped doing those kind of videos and there wasn't anybody making those kind of videos. So I was doing all this kind of research myself. And there were a couple problems I was running into. Number one, I couldn't get access to the teams to figure out anything. Why? Because who am I? Oh, I'm invested in your project. So I'd end up talking to some Discord admin or Telegram admin that doesn't know crap about like fundamentals. And I couldn't really get access to the team. Secondly, I couldn't talk to any of the decision makers. Why? Because even if you're worth $1 million or $2 million or $3 million, even like, so what? You can't really get access to these people until you're worth like 100 million or 200 million or 500 million. So I was like, well, a couple of things. I'm doing all this research anyway. Why don't I just start making YouTube videos about it? Because there's a lack of that type of video on YouTube, at least from what I'm finding. And so I think there's an audience for that. Secondly, with the YouTube channel, I can actually get these teams to come on and I can interview them and ask the questions I want to ask anyway, and then have all the viewers be able to see it. And so at first, when I launched my channel, right, I had like no followers. I was like, hey guys, my goal is to grow this channel. If you'll help me grow it, then I'll be able to get enough viewers that I'll be able to get these teams and projects to come on and interview and ask them hard questions and ask them and just also get the information on where they see the future going. And so a bunch of people they're like, yeah, I'm down with that. And I remember being at about 6,000 subscribers, and there was like 2 people that were like, how come you haven't had any big projects on and everything? And the truth is, I started reaching out to someone. I had about 3,000 subscribers, and I totally got smacked down. And they're like, no, sorry. Oh, yeah, I talked to him about you. Sorry, not interested. I was like, really hurt my feelings. I'm like, I'm so mad. You know what? I'm never going to have that person on ever. I'm never going to invite them on again. And then I realized, don't let my ego get in the way, just keep plugging away. And you'll eventually get big enough that you'll be able to have them on. And so, I've been able to get a lot of projects on these days, and it does really help because also when you have a YouTube channel, sometimes you get involved behind the scenes with a lot of players that have a lot of connections, and they can help connect you up to that team and to the actual decision makers or the people that you want to talk to anyway. And sometimes they won't come on your channel even now, but you can at least get some information, have discussions with them. So it's really helpful, not only for my own information, but just informing my audience with what I think about some projects.
Yeah. Well, and to that point, right? And this is why I wanted to have you on as my first guest. Obviously, I know you really well, which is great. But at the same time, you were actually one of the first YouTubers to talk about OMI and VeVe. There were a couple others. Don't get me wrong. You weren't the first, but you were one of the first to talk about it. And it's funny because obviously, as you and I have talked about it, and I've dived into VeVe a lot more, and you've had me on your channel talking about VeVe. Just getting you that recognition that I think that you deserve as one of the OGs that we've talked to. VeVe Viral, and he was like, yeah, I watched Rain's videos what made me buy my first Todd. And so there are some OGs in the VeVe community that also like learned about that, including myself, VeVe, from you and your channel, and I love that. And so this is the perfect transition into the state of VeVe. Right, we talked about the bear market and those cycles that you've been through right now, and I see a lot of infighting, a lot of VeVe's a rug pull, that the team are shysters. And so I want to talk about several different topics here. We'll go through, and I'd love to get your thoughts on everything, like what's happening there. So first and foremost, VeVe, the prices are down on the collectibles, right? The all-time highs, like, and there's reasons for that huge pump that we saw in December of 21 and January of 2022, we're down really low, right? Not only just VeVe collectibles, but the OMI token.
Mm-hmm.
Are you still bullish on VeVe, because they're still dropping a lot of collectibles, right? Which is diluting the liquidity that's left in the market. We're not getting as many. VeVe's not adding as many users anymore, right? So the more drops they do, then there's less money to buy that up, which then drops the prices of collectibles as people are then selling their collectibles to buy the newest shiny object. So what do you think right now about VeVe? Is it going all the way down, or do you have high hopes for what could happen? What are your thoughts?
So the flood's really high right now. So people are saying it's terrible, it's terrible, it's terrible. According to my mentor in real estate that was worth hundreds of millions of dollars, what does he say is the thing to do when that's the case? Sell and run away, or buy while it's super cheap? Well, buy while it's super cheap, right? So is Ecomi going to fail? Are they going to rug pull? Rug pull? People who say it's a rug pull don't even know what the F they're talking about, because so this is business development, right? And so I get it that they really don't know what the F they're talking about. And this is a great chance for them to learn. One of the challenges is a lot of people just aren't emotionally ready and emotionally sophisticated enough to let themselves make massive gains. Why? Because when the FUD's this high, they can't emotionally withstand it. And not only do they sell, they jump on trying to convince everyone else to sell to justify their decision, which I guess at one point I should say thank you. That's what causes these massive red candles to happen that I like to buy. Now, I wish I had a ton of funds free. I have a lot of liquidity that's locked up in some long-term investments. So it's not like I have 100,000 or 200,000 or 500,000 on the side that I could just buy up at this price that it's sitting right now under 0.09 cents. But is this a buy area or a sell area? Well, it's a sell if you need to pay your mortgage area, but it's a buy area when everyone's panicking. And so I've seen this happen a couple different times in crypto. And right now, like, the FUD is real. And it seems like the SEC is going to ruin as many projects as it can. And oh my gosh, like, in all these projects, Silvergate Bank is getting shut down. And then they're going to go after this other bank. And oh my gosh, it's all going to fail. That's usually what the massive red candles in the back look like. And like, they created so much FUD that people panicked out and realized that a bunch of these stories are purposely put and brought to your attention at the same time to drive these massive red candles that cause people to panic sell out. So is Ecomi and VeVe behind on their schedules from where I wish they were? Yes, I wish they had taken their development investments more serious earlier. Hello K talks a lot about that, and he's right on with that. And they could have made that decision a lot better, and they would be a lot farther ahead had they done that. They didn't. Businesses sometimes make bad decisions. they made a very good decision, got started on this kind of road 3 years before just about everyone else. So they made a massively right decision. David Yu is absolutely the right person to go out there, and he has literally landed some of the top IP in the whole world. Another massively right decision, right person, right time, right vision. Do I think OMI and Akomi are going to make it? Yeah, massively. Like, I think they'll make it through at least the next cycle or the cycle after that, and probably be around for forever. Had they jumped on getting their own developers and everything earlier and spending massive amounts on, hiring some top devs much earlier, well, it would have guaranteed or cemented them into history permanently, that nobody would have a chance to catch up. Well, they made a mistake there, and they waited too long to start hiring better developers, right? And so that's going to cost them some market share. It's cost them some of the loyalty of some of the people who are loyal, but because it's been down for so long that they don't have the vision to see past times like this, that they're going to leave. And as they leave, for whatever reason, they have to like FUD everyone else and try to pull as many other people away as they can. That's just part of it, right? So I was pretty dialed into Cardano when Cardano had times like this, and it had reached a high of $1.40 in 2018, and it was being traded for under 2 cents. And I saw a lot of this same kind of stuff, right? Cardano's dead, Cardaleno, they call it, because just delay after delay, and they're way behind development schedule, and they've just made all these bad decisions, and they'll never survive. And it went from 1.7 cents to $3.40. And then it pulled back again. Who knew? Crypto is volatile, has these cycles, but volatile means it'll go massively down. But as long as the company survives and makes some good decisions, when money comes back into the market, if the narrative that they're in makes sense, well, then it usually swings massively to the upside. And in my own portfolio, I'm hoping and betting that Akomi will make a big turnaround in the future. Yes, it's frustrating that they're not on more exchanges. Yes, it's frustrating that the OMI utility program isn't further along, that the Master Collector program isn't further along. That's frustrating. I was an early investor in a project called Axie Infinity, which I also went through the life cycles with too. I invested in Axie Infinity in January 2019. Nobody was talking about it. No major influencer even knew what Axie Infinity was. I like this idea of blockchain gaming and thought that it was the future, and I invested in Gods Unchained and Axie Infinity. I put about 4,100 into Axie Infinity, and for 18 months it continued to go down from there, which was super frustrating. But then I didn't panic out. There were a lot of people that did. Oh my gosh, I'm so done with this. So many delays. I'm out of here. They'll never succeed. What a failure. Yeah, they succeeded, and they became huge. And so that $4,000 investment, when it 100x, I sold out because I was concerned. It was specifically in their land. And I was concerned because they only released a quarter of it, and they were saying they were going to up prices 20% every release. And so it was trading way above that 20% threshold. And I was concerned they would do another land drop and just flood the market with land. So when it hit 100x up, I took my profits. And then, of course, a month later, they're like, oh, by the way, we're not going to do another land sale for 3 years. And then the prices went crazy. From the bottom, so I put in $4,100. At the bottom, it might have been worth about $1,200. And then it went up to, if I had held to the very end or the very top, it would have been $12 million. So, oh well, I made 100x on it. I could have made 3,000x. A magic crystal ball, but you don't have a magic crystal ball. So, right. You have to decide on these massive red days. Wow, super cheap. Do I like buying on sale, or do I like chasing green candles? And the truth is, most people will chase green candles. Emotionally, that's all they're prepared to do. So they wait till they see everybody else buying before they're like, okay, there's a bunch of us buying. They don't realize that's the time to be taking profits and selling. And so they just follow these bad patterns. And then they're like, oh, crypto's terrible. I'm out of here. It's horrible. And they miss out on the massive gains because they're doing it all wrong. And part of what I talk about on my channel is the mindset behind it. I even wrote a rap that I had a guy out of the UK produce so that people could understand what how to think about this in the right way, so that they can just reverse trade it, so that they can understand when we have massive down days like this. It's a great day to pick up on those projects that you've done some research that you believe have a chance to survive long term. Pick them up and then hold them till people are like FOMOing in. That's not when you FOMO in and buy more. That's when you take profits, get your initial out and some gains out. And then as it continues to go up, take more gains out.
Yeah, I like that. I remember at the height of in January with my VeVe portfolio, I was texting my buddies. I'm like, guys, my portfolio is up $5,000 a day. And then the next day I was like, it's up another $7,000. It's up another 10 grand. Like, it was euphoric, right? And the people were telling me, why don't you sell? And I was like, it's only going up. But in my mind, I was saying that, but it was funny because then also I was like, I know there's a ton of bots in there. I know that the gems are discounted, right? Like this is it's inflated. Like this is not what the true price is. But even then, like my logic couldn't override the emotion that I was feeling there because I hadn't taken a step back and been like and made a game plan right beforehand of being like, all right, if it hits these prices, whether it's these collectibles or tokens, like I'm going to sell. And yep, I might miss the top, but like this is still a substantial gain. And like I gotta own that, right? And so I wanted to talk. So Kay, I had this comment up here for a little bit, and I think he brings up a good point, right? He's bullish on the company, but not as bullish on the collectibles long term value, as obviously they can crank up the volumes of different grails, right? There can be more and more grails, FAs of different characters, and then the fees are substantial. Because first and foremost, right, you buy it off, you have a tax that you've got to pay just to buy the gems.
Yep.
And then on top of that, you have the seller's fee if you're going to sell, right? Which is depending on the IP, but Disney, it's 8.5% that's taken away. And then on top of that, to cash out is another 10%. So he's saying that it's basically a 30%. I need 30% increase just from what I bought to even break even. Compared to OMI, right? Like you don't have any of those selling features. Obviously, like if you're selling, there can be some fees on an exchange, which are pretty minimal, like nothing like a 30%. And over time, like look, I like the diversification. I have I was just looking and I was talking and shout out to Pyro Miniac for helping me find my wallet right in the top wallet list on IMX, and I'm within the top 500 wallets right of holders, and that was pretty cool to see that. And because I do believe that the MCP is coming. I know it's delayed, but and obviously, so I'm going to back up a little bit. I don't know if you know blockchain Rick James. He's in a lot of Twitter spaces. He's a smart guy. I call him the bull in the china shop. Like he definitely says some things, and I'm like, whoa, bro, just calm down like a little bit, you know. But we were having this debate about the concerns of VeVe's not doing the right things, and it all kind of goes back to. And I'm going to shout out Javier Torres. Some people call him this massive futter. He's the one. He does a lot of research, right? He's and this recent video that he put out was a compilation of Dan and David saying, and Reese, right, saying, oh, like so May of 2021, and they're like, we have 3 exchanges. They're coming. It's just around the corner. MCP is just around the corner. Comics in the showroom just around the corner, right? And then it's just like we don't have almost any of that. That being said, and I wanted to address some of this, and I was talking to Block about it too, is what I see a lot of times in this space is people will only shout out a portion of the story and they don't give credit, or they will ignore logical or reasonable potential explanations. And I think that as an investor, you need to do that. I think it's important, and I appreciate Javier going out and pointing these things out, right, and bringing up legitimate concerns and being like, hey, this team has constantly said, like, these things are happening, and people made investment choices, me included, right? Like, when I thought Master Collector Program was coming, like, I stacked on a lot of sets and things at higher prices because I thought it was just around the corner, right? But when I take a step back and say, okay, regarding exchanges back in 2021, we know that they were still on Go Chain. What we also don't know, but the likelihood is this, that they had some exchanges lined up. And then, for whatever reason, those exchanges, or there was some miscommunication where they thought that the OMI token was an ERC20 token, but it wasn't. And as soon as they found that out, well, most exchanges are not going to support for one token adding in a whole nother blockchain. Like, that's so much time and money for one token that I guarantee you that was part of the problem, is that they were like, wait a second, you're not ERC20? We can't add you. We're not going to add you. And so then they're like, oh crap. Then it was like, we're not getting new exchanges until we get the migration onto IMX. And we did get OKX. And I remember being like, oh, OKX, like, what a joke. Like, that's not an exchange. But it turns out it actually is a pretty dang big exchange. It's just not an exchange that US people can use. And a lot of the VeVe people and who own the OMI token are US based. And so, like, for a lot of us, it felt like, well, it didn't even matter what exchange if we can't use it. But I guess where I'm going with all of this is, to your point about buying when it's low and in the thought process, and to address Javier Torres's thing. Number one, I still believe in the team. Yep, it's taken some time. I remember when the FUD was that cash out was never coming, that it was a rug that was never going to happen. Literally, like, tweets and posts and all of this, like, it's never coming because it was supposed to come. They talked about cash out in like August of 21. And then in December of 21, they're like, yep, it's coming, it's coming. And on your channel, I was sitting here talking about like planning on it coming like February or March of 22, right? And all of this FUD, and then it finally came out, and they just move on to the next FUD, especially during a bear market. What's next? Oh, well, we still don't have these tier one exchanges you promised us. You're lying, you're cheats, this is a rug pull. And it's like, we don't know what goes on behind the scenes. And until I do, I have to step back and say, is there enough info here for me to make the decision that I no longer want to invest in this company because they've lost my trust? And I'll say, as I look at everything as a whole, I don't believe that their intent is to rug us and to hose us. I do believe that at that time they thought that things were going to happen, and maybe that's naivety, maybe it wasn't. I don't know, but I look at what they're building, and they're having conversations with multi-billion-dollar companies. They're talking to the attorneys of multi-billion-dollar companies. You know who's not doing that? 99.9% of all the other NFT projects that are on OpenSea, right? And so when people try to compare VeVe to OpenSea, and they're like, well, look at what they're doing. Look at their interoperable. I'm like, because they can. Now, I get that DC is interoperable on IMX with HRO, right? I would love to know the story behind that. But it could be that those attorneys overall, they're getting different advice because they have a lot more high-powered attorneys that are looking into the laws and those concerns before they act, because they have to, because the IP that they represent when they're selling there, right? And but anyways, I'd love to know your thoughts on the lack of completing deadlines, which has happened a lot, right? And whether you think that should be the case to not trust them anymore, or where are you at in terms of them not meeting deadlines, them now hiring a new project manager in Mitch, and these recent updates. We just got an update to where we now see people are back in the MCP beta program, right? So can you talk about that?
Yeah, so a few different thoughts there. Like, yes, it's delayed. That's why the FUD has brought the price so cheap. I use the Cardano example, even though Cardano is a third generation blockchain. Some people say, oh, it's totally different than this. No, it's not. From the business cycle perspective and the reasons why the token is way down, they're the exact same reasons. These things are delayed. So many things that were on the roadmap are way behind where they wanted to have them. And guess what? A lot of people sold Cardano at under 3 cents. And later they absolutely regretted it because they end up selling the bottom. And there's some people going to FUD out of OMI right now and sell it because they're not emotionally prepared to make massive gains. Now, hopefully they learn some lessons and they stop blaming other people, and that they can just like soak in the lessons that this is business cycle problems. Like, were they lying when they said that? No. Were they wrong? Absolutely, they were wrong. Lying means they meant to like deceive people. I don't get deception from David Yu at all. Like, having seen him and met him in person, like, he's just not a deceptive guy. He's straightforward. So they gave you the best information. They gave us the best information they had at the time, and then things change. That happens in business all the time, and it's super frustrating because what people are really frustrated about is that their portfolio is down. And they're just projecting that on, find somebody to blame and somebody be mad at and somebody yell and scream at, instead of taking responsibility and being like, man, I thought it was going to play out differently, but here's where I am. Okay, let me sit back and unemotionally decide, where can this go? Do I leave, or do I sell at these massive lows? Or is there a chance I'm just acting emotional and it might have a chance to turn around and do really well? Or is there something else that's gotten savaged even more that I believe in the future even more, that maybe at least if I'm selling at these lows, I can roll into that's even cheaper, but they've got a good chance of making it. What I like about Akomi is their chances to make it from into this next cycle are way higher than most of the projects that have been massively hemorrhaging during these days, because it's one of the few crypto projects that actually does have some income coming in and some revenue coming in. Most are working off of the capital that they've raised, and they're at a bigger, like, crazy breaking point. Now, Akomi was there back in 2020 before, when they launched their app, and they're like, wow, we really hope people see this vision and they buy these things. They're not there anymore. They have a successful app. It's not where we'd want it to be, but there's people that buy all these launches and where that's going. Oh, let me go back and address the collectibles versus the OMI, because that's a really good question I did want to talk about. So let me just throw this in the middle. Back in 2021, when I first started covering VeVe Collectibles, the OMI token was like 0.23 cents, and it went all the way up to 1.4 cents. And I was telling people, look, I'm not buying the OMI token at these prices. You missed the massive, like, cheap prices, and I just don't chase into green candles. But these collectibles, like the Todd McFarlane Batman, they haven't experienced any gains yet. So this is the starting price, and this is the first Batman on the blockchain. This makes massive sense to me. I'm not touching the Akomi token at these prices. That turned out to be great, because from there it took, what was that, March of 2021. In fact, I was the first person I saw that covered VeVe's app, and half of my audience was super pissed at me on why I was covering like this stupid collectible Batman shiz, because why don't you stick with this serious stuff, they said. Well, was I right? I mean, it went about 200x from that price. The Todd McFarlane Batman went from about 80 to $16,000 at the top. So yeah, I ended up being right. I think a bunch of people unsubscribed to my channel because I was wasting my time with this DC Comics Batman stuff. But I was looking for things that had value, and I felt like the token had massively increased and the collectibles were massively undervalued for what they could be, especially season one. Season one makes a big difference, and we still see that today. Season one is like, there's no more season one. That was all back then. And in the future, like, people that are buying collectibles, I would say be very picky about what you buy if you're thinking of it like, I want it to go up in value. Obviously, some people buy things because they just like it, and they make these amazing memes out of it, which I really appreciate. Like, I'm glad they did their showroom, and people do these cool setups. Like, did you see that one's like, this is why we don't talk about Bruno, and he's there, and it looks like he's holding kryptonite, and Superman's like on his side and stuff. And I'm like, I love the people that do this. They just make my life so good. And because VeVe has a showroom, it's so cool that they have that, and I love that part. But as far as buying things that can go up massively from here, I'm not buying a lot of collectibles right now. Sometimes some comics that I just feel are massively undervalued, or I'm a big fan on the Boba Fett and the Darth Vader collectibles, because still, like, it's not the very first Boba Fett, I think, on the blockchain, but almost the first. Might be the first Darth Vader on the blockchain, which I think is a big deal long term, and that people aren't understanding it, kind of like people didn't understand it when I talked about Todd McFarlane's Batman, because it was on the app still for like a month and a half after I was talking about it, and people are like, see, you were wrong on this. Just give it some time. OMI token is at a very attractive price. The collectibles, Kay is not wrong there, right? They're like, be careful on what you're buying in collectibles, except for that stuff that you just like, that sometimes you pick up things because you want to own it. Like the Lamborghinis are super cool. That's something you just want to own and collect. But if you're hoping it will go up in value, I would stick to the grails, but better price than anything, I think the OMI token, especially on a day where it's getting savage like this. It's broken through its trend line. So, yeah, it's down, and maybe it gets even cheaper. Who knows? But anything under 0.1 cents is an amazing price. And the farther it goes below 0.1 cents or was it? Yeah, 0.1 cents. It's a really cheap price, because I do think in the future we'll see 1 and 2 and 3 cents again. Maybe if we're really lucky, 25 cents or a dollar. Who knows? Who knows? It depends on how much market share they end up taking as most collectibles go digital, because in the future, I think that's where everything goes. So I'm not sure if I answered all the different questions we had talked about, but I answered at least 2 of them.
I peppered you with so many there. That's the thing, is that there's just so much to go over. I wanted to maybe lay this out, and maybe I didn't do a good job for Josh when I was saying that there could be some logical and reasonable explanations, right? So I did. I think that I covered some of the reasons why we didn't get the exchanges when we thought. Um, with the Go token, and then the conversion to IMX, and then on top of that, like, additional regulation has come about, right? The SEC is definitely targeting a lot more crypto firms, and calling their token securities and issuing Wells notices. And I guarantee you that the team is having conversations with the Disneys and Marvels, and even DC, and just saying like, hey, like, um, they could potentially have a big target on their back. They are one of the only companies actually making money, right? So if the SEC wants to issue some fines, who are they going to want to target, right? And and they're partnered with Disney. I mean, they love making headlines and splashing things like these regulatory bodies, right? And so I guarantee VeVe is definitely looking at the regulations and saying, hey, what makes sense, and how can we protect not only ourselves, our IP, and our customers, like our the VeVe fam, right? And making sure that we don't get hit with things that are going to really set us back there. So that's the exchanges. With respect to OUP and MCP, I look, after hearing Kay and some other devs in the space when they said that they talked about the VeVe app and the coding. When they first developed it, I'm assuming that what they did is they kind of um, got different devs and kind of stacked it together, right? Like a makeshift app, and they call it spaghetti code, right? And the higher you stack, the more difficult it is for it not to fall apart all the time and break. And so that's one of the things that I think that they're like, oh, right around the corner, but like something as complex potentially as MCP or OUP, as they were trying to develop it, they're like, this isn't working, right? Like we can't get it to work. And that's when finally, I feel like they've hired someone good in Mitch, right? This project manager, he is developing this cadence. So that's the explanation for MCP and OUP. Is I think that the app, the way the code was, they had to completely go back and redo a lot of that and build it up correctly so that they can have more complex um, environments and calculations. I mean, how long did it take for a search bar? I think that that's really saying something, right? Like, I don't think that they didn't want the search bar. I think that it was a lot more difficult to go back and change all of that code and make it so that something as simple as a search bar could work. And like, so anyways, I hope, Josh, that I'm addressing some of those logical and reasonable explanations. Now, is that what for sure happened? No, but I'm willing to give them the benefit of the doubt. I do see progress, and as Mitch has come on, I've started to see, and in fact, NFT Hero talked about this, right? Right here, where he says, Yeah, like the mobile app has had significant updates, contrary to popular belief, right? They are doing things, but during a FUD or a bear market, a lot of people will ignore any good news because they're frustrated that their bags are down, and it's this mental toll that takes on them. So
It's kind of like what's funny is spouses get like this in marriages. People get like this and like they just get emotionally done and they're just like, I can't take this anymore. And they're mad and they're projecting the blame, right? So when I say people aren't emotionally ready for massive gains, they aren't. They haven't been through these ups and downs before. This is their first time. So they're jumping into the deep end because crypto doesn't have all these like guards, right? So a lot of politicians want to set up all these guards. So you can't ever play in the deep end. I'm sorry, but you want to go from broke to millions of dollars. We're going to close all those loopholes because you're not emotionally ready for this. And so we're going to close them all so that you'll never be able to get there. And that's what they want to do. They want to protect yourself because what if you jump in the deep end and you don't learn how to swim? Well, what I hate about that is it shuts off the deep end. So those that, are willing to go through some licks and get knocked down and maybe fail a couple times, but then figure it out, well, it shuts off their access to ever do that. So then only the rich can get richer because all the poor people can't get access to those types of things. And that's where Gary Gensler is going. You're not emotionally ready for this. Sorry, we're going to shut it all off so my friends at Goldman Sachs can make all the money. Yeah, great. They're emotionally ready for this and you're not. So we're going to shut off access. We're going to declare everything as security, put it so you can only get to it through a stockbroker or some kind of broker. And then, that's the only access you get. And by the way, early stage investing, no, you're not going to be able to invest in anything till it's been around 3 to 7 years and they do an initial public offering, which is another way of saying that's when all the early VC investors are now dumping on your head. You're their exit liquidity because they got in early stage because you weren't emotionally ready for it. So are you emotionally ready for it? I think if you're here, you are. Maybe. If you've gone all negative on everything, then you're showing that you're not. Look, do I have my concerns some days? Yeah, I had a real day that I was frustrated because a number of things. And I was like, oh, man. But then I'm a human being. I get emotional too. And then I think about it. I'm like, well, okay, where are they at? Where are they going? What is the situation? Okay, well, yeah. And then I evaluate, is it good at this price? Where do I think it could go? And then, just clear my head and get unemotional about it. And that lasted about 3 hours. And I was like, I called Doctor of Stuff and I ranted to him and I was like, I'm pissed about this. And he's like, yeah, I get it. And so I just needed to vent a little bit. Why? Well, I vented on Axie Infinity before it went 100x. I was frustrated. I watched an AMA with a team, and I was not impressed by their team. And later they had Animoca Brands come in and buy some equity and partner with them and help them have better business development experience than what they had themselves. And they ended up making it and having massive, massive gains. And so thank goodness I, didn't get all crazy and sell it massive lows. I would have missed out on the massive gains. So is the project going to fail between now and the next bull market? I don't see why it would. I there's not anything I'm aware of that could make it. Maybe it could happen, but I'm not seeing any major reasons to be concerned that might happen. So yeah.
yeah, I agree with you, and that's the thing is, as I'm addressing this tweet with or message from Josh, right? Like, of course there could be reasons, and look, I agree, and uh, I hope the team, someone on the VV team, watches this, and I think that they know, but the lack of transparency is concerning. That is concerning. Um, I I wish they could come out and here's my thing is I don't know. I don't know everything that's going on behind the scenes. I know that there are NDAs. I don't know what those NDAs cover, but I do feel like there are opportunities where they could come out and and say some things. Now, that also being said, they are trying to build a brand and a company, and for someone like for us to want David or Dan or Alex to address every single concern, that like pops up and things, I don't think that's realistic either. But to the complaints of the MCP, right? And it's been over a year, and more of these exchanges. Um, it would be great if there was more transparency around that, and I hope that the team takes that. If they ever listen to this, they think about that, because that does build distrust, and it's a missed opportunity, I think, because I know in any relationship I ever have, if I've done something and I've messed up, and I just cop to it, and I just say, you know what, I messed up on this, and here's why. This is what I thought was happening, and this is what I wanted. And going forward, here's the thing. That actually garners more trust, and like in those relationships where I'm like, I am way more apt to do something or be more involved because someone was willing to own those mistakes. And so I'm with you, Josh. Lack of transparency is concerning. But when again I step back and take the whole potential investment, I have to look and say, like Rain just said, do I think in the next 4 years that VeVe is going to make it through this bear market? I do. I think that they're making enough money. Yes, they're losing customers, but you know what? All it takes is for a major partnership for a listing or something, and all of those people who are said I sold and I'm out, they're coming back in. But you know what? They're buying as the candle's going up, like those green candles. And so that's the investment thought process that you have to have is, do I think that in the next 4 years that the MCP is going to be fully rolled out, that the OUP is going to be fully rolled out, that we will have a fully rolled out VV verse, that I will be able to use some of my collectibles as skins in the VV verse, and only certain, like, there's so much potential in what they can do with the IP that they have that no one else can do, that the potential to the risk, that risk reward, there is some risk, but the reward is so great for me that I'm like, I have to be stacking at these prices. And so in the Twitter space the other night, which I labeled why block is 99.9% wrong, like a VV discussion, is he's like, oh, I'm selling all that stuff. He's like, thank you for being my exit liquidity. And I'm like, I am happy to be your exit liquidity, my friend, because if my thesis is right, you're going to have to buy at higher prices than you just sold to me at, because you're waiting for that confirmation. And once that confirmation is there, the price has already gone up. And so maybe you'll buy back in, but it's at a higher price than me. And maybe you're my exit liquidity at that point, because I have different sale points, right? And that's just overall the thought process that hopefully, and that's why I super enjoy your channel, Rain, is there's very few people out there in the YouTube space that aren't there to pump their own bags, right? And I mean, we saw that, and I think BitBoy's done a better job. But as he was growing, right, like he got called out on pumping them token schemes where he's like, I'm talking about this. He didn't disclose that he owned the token, or he was saying, hey, this is a great buy, and then he's selling at those, and that does ruin some of their credibility. Whereas you're coming in here and saying, here's what I'm doing. You don't have to do it, but here's my thought process behind it, and trying to educate your viewers. And I've loved that. Like I love that your channel so much, and the information, the research you do, and so many different projects that there. And so let's see. Oh, Fake Alex is here. Let's see what Fake Alex has to say. We will keep dropping IP, and you will keep buying. That's our business model. We can take as much time. I think he said this on the last stream too. Like, this is the Fake Alex. And he'll say that he's not. And but anyways, yeah, it's super fun. So hey, Rain, I've got to close this up here. I just want to open it up to you with any parting thoughts you have on people who may be concerned about VeVe, what's going on, OMI, and moving forward, your thoughts on it, and anything else you want to say before we close it out.
Yeah, so if you're someone new to crypto the last 2 years and you're just going through this cycle, and it can be frustrating and hard to make it through, like, realize that this is a longer term game. And I'm not invested in just VeVe and Akomi and the OMI token. I'm invested across a lot of things because, like, I don't want all my eggs in one basket. So, and it also helps me be patient, because if I go all in on one basket, you almost are like clutching that basket so hard, you like break all the eggs in it. Because it's hard emotionally to go through these down cycles. And even though it's only been really down since January last year, that was a little over a year ago. It, like the collectibles, like, it feels like a really long time, and the token's gone down significantly since 2 years ago, and even from some other points, like, a year ago. It feels like a very long time. In the grand scheme of things, like real estate takes like 16, sometimes 14 to 20 years from a top to the next top. And crypto takes like 4 years from a top to the next top.
Mm-hmm.
So long. So it's like, okay, so if you commit to the longer term, great. Spend this time while things are down to educate yourself on as much as you can. And then try to dollar cost average into the stuff that's super cheap. And that'll probably work really well for you. And realize that you're new at this. You're always bad before you're good. So take the time to get good at this. The people that I know that have been around and they've stuck it out and they've been through multiple cycles, well, Chris from Crypto is a billionaire, and it's not from his shilling Bybit. Yes, a lot of people sign him Bybit, and he probably makes some good income from that. Chris is the freaking best investor I have ever seen. He does research at levels that, like, I wish I could do. Like, he is super analytical. I watched most his picks in 2017, like, go 100 to 1000x. And so that's why Chris is freaking rich. That's why he's a billionaire. And he's been around in the space for 7 years. I know someone else that's been around in the space for 8 years, and he's maybe not as good of an investor, but he just looks at fundamentals. And, oh, he's 29 and he's worth like $250 million. What else could a 29-year-old have made $250 million from as a side job, right? So crypto, but he had a longer vision and he stuck around. So
Yeah.
Is everyone going to make that much? I don't know. It depends on how good you are, how fast you learn, how emotionally smart you are, and able to look past all the FUD and see, okay, what are the chances that this project makes it? So, stick around, make a long-term commitment to yourself to learn and to grow during this downtime.
That's excellent word of wisdom, Rain, and from a seasoned investor, right, who's not only been in crypto but in real estate and seen a lot of the different market cycles. Just like to thank everyone who stayed around and watched this whole time. I loved a lot of the commentary in the chats. Super fun. If you haven't already, please like and subscribe to my channel, as I plan on bringing on more of these awesome VeVe influencers here to talk about their thoughts and their ideas on VeVe and where it's going. And if you haven't already subscribed to Crypto Rain's YouTube channel, I watch all of his videos. They're excellent. I definitely am really bullish on a lot of the tokens that he's talked about. And if you haven't subscribed to his Twitter, it's at Crypto Rain with 2 N's. Somehow someone already stole that first N.
Even way back in 2017, somebody at Crypto Rain with one, and I'm like, no.
So again, thanks so much, everyone. And we'll see you next time. Take care.